the audience that we have a teleconference participation by Mr. Zamoyda on the laptop there. Say hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so for item 2, adoption of the agenda for this meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
We need to have a roll call vote because Paul is remote. So, Laura, would you please call roll?
Board Member Foltz,
Aye.
Herrick,
Aye.
Smart, Zamoyda. Zamoyda,
Mr. Zamoyda, can you hear us?
God, let me try this. Aye. My headphones don't work. Aye.
Okay. All right, we're good.
Okay, it's unanimous, both members present. Okay, hearing section. Do we have any cards?
we do not.
We do not. Okay, so we'll move on to the first interim financial report presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Foltz.
Madam CEO.
All right, so thank you, everyone. This is our first interim presentation for the 25-26 fiscal year. Each school district is required to certify its financial condition twice during each fiscal year. So this is our first interim, there will then be a second interim. And the purpose is to address that we're able to meet our financial obligations in the current and the two subsequent fiscal years. First interim for 25-26, we're maintaining a positive certification. Yay. Yay, congratulations.
That's always
Always the goal. So this is our comparison of our adopted budget for the current year to what we're showing now as a first interim. And I know this is very small, so I'll try and zoom in here if I can. I'm actually not sure I can make this bigger. Here. There we go. It is.
Hey, Mandy, can you turn me towards the screen?
Yes, sir. There you go.
I'm sure you can see that very well.
It was dark.
Would you like me to put you closer than that, Mr. Zamoyda?
Okay, so normally I would like to zoom in. I'm not able to do that for some reason on this presentation. But to start at the top of this slide here, we're looking at our enrollment that was projected was 2160. We were right on that at 2160 as of CBEDS. And our district ADA at adopted budget, we were projecting 1998.3. We came in a bit lower than that at CBEDS at 1975. So basically 92.5% is what we projected. 91.5 is where we currently are as of CBEDS. We are our most recent attendance month, we were tracking more at 94%, so I do expect this number to improve. But this is where we are right now.
Yeah, it's improving.
Yes, but as of where the number we have to use is our 91.5 for right now.
Besides last week.
Besides last week.
Yeah.
We don't talk about Thanksgiving.
We don't talk about Thanksgiving week.
When it comes to attendance. So our LCFF revenues, there was a bit of a decrease there in our EPA funding, but like I said, by the end of the school year, I'm hoping to see a better number there for LCFF based on our ADA. Our federal revenues, there's an increase there. So with federal revenues, they are what's called unearned, where we record the revenues at the same time that we record the expenditures. So as our budget for expenses and federal programs change, we also have to change revenues. That's the reason for a change in federal revenues there. This is related to the CSI grant, which is it's specific to Chautauqua, and it's related to Title I. It has a very similar program to Title I. We increased we expanded some programs at that school related to this funding, and so we were able to, increase our spending for our students. So our revenues that we're reporting for this fiscal year also increased. Under state funding, we had quite a bit of an increase there. The majority of it is related to the ELOP program. We have some ongoing revenues now for ELOP that have gone up. The state has changed the way that it calculates those percentages. We now fall in the higher level of funding funding, to put it, simply. So we're receiving more ELOC revenues year over year now. There's also a new discretionary block grant. It's called the Student Services and Professional Development Discretionary Block Grant, and that came in under state funding. That was about $600,000. There's also CCSPP funding that we had budgeted lower than came in for the current year, and then Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. Those are the biggest pieces of that change in state revenue. And other local, we had nothing budgeted under SPED revenues. After some digging, I was able to find some revenues that we could budget that we do see year over year. It's not much compared to the $3 million or so that program actually needs, but everything helps that we can budget. So our overall revenues increased by about 7% as far as what we can report.
And if I'm reading things correctly, there's no indication that federal money is going to be severely modified, at least not this year.
We did see, and it's hard to see that reflected here because we had our increase in the CSI revenues, but we did have a decrease in our Title I. It's about $120,000 lower than we had anticipated. So that was a shift. We had to really pull from other places in our budget to make that work. That was
It's hard when they don't explain it all the time too.
Well,
Why we get cut.
Right.
well, I mean, the federal Department of Education is in massive turmoil.
Yes.
Okay,
And
and
it's
so I
many
would have
districts
expected
saw
there to be
that.
some impact.
Right, and it did. So this was the first that I had seen that the changes in the administration that affected our Title I funding. It now has. So we did see a sizable decrease there in our revenues for Title I for this year. So expenditures, we had some changes. In salaries for certificated and classified, what you're seeing in the increases is additional supports we were able to add with restricted programs that we're learning to better utilize or they're new, and we're adding teachers. Like for instance, we have some teachers that were added to the Prop 28 funding for new music and arts programs. So we have increases in expenditure there. There's also this added support that I kind of referred to under the CSI program. So we were able to add staff and programs and support to Chautauqua under that program. Then the LREBG, that's Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, we're able to better leverage that to support salaries and staff. So you'll see that reflected under certificated salaries and under benefits, the statutory costs related to that. And under classified, it's similar. There's a lot of expansion in our ELOC programs at all of our sites. So that comes with time cards and people working extra duty to support those programs, as well as our ever expanding special education program. We did need to add a couple of, I think 2 special education aides so far this year, and just added some costs over the adopted budget. So moving to books and supplies, there was an increase there in some additional curriculum that we purchased. Services, it looks like there was a large decrease in services, and there was. What this mostly has to do with is the way that those restricted programs up above were originally budgeted. So shifting those priorities, especially as we saw a decrease in our Title I funding, and we really had to look at how can we better utilize this funding where it's actually going to serve students, it's going to add supports, it's going to retain staff, and it's not just a matter of how do we spend this on goods and services. So shifting those priorities, that's where a lot of that came out of what had been budgeted under software or consulting services or whatever professional services. So that's where we're seeing that decrease under the services and other expenditures. Capital outlay, that's some costs that we've paid out so far that's related to the new portable building that will be going in at North Shore Elementary School, and that's being paid out of the ELOC program. And then we had an increase in our projected excess costs that we pay to our SELPA for special education services for our students. So overall, our expenditures increased by $1.3 million. And so if you look at the surplus deficit line at the bottom of the slide, if you can see that, our projected at budget adoption was $2.9 million deficit. And we're looking better now with a $1.4 million deficit. And that is planned deficit spending that we'll talk about more on a further slide here. These are non-recurring revenues and expenditures, just kind of a more detail on some of our restricted programs. We had like the CSI grant that I already talked about, added staff and programs for Chautauqua. The Universal Pre-K Planning, resource 6053. That one is actually expired and should not have been budgeted at budget adoption, so we dropped that out. Had a new apportionment of the learning recovery, which we talked about as well, and CCSPP, an increased apportionment from what we had originally budgeted. New one-time funding is that discretionary block grant that I talked about. So our total non-recurring revenues increased by over $1 million, and our non-recurring expenditures, much of the expenditures kind of mirrors what is shown in the revenue section up above. So we have our added staff and programs for CT, our expired funding that we dropped out for the Universal Pre-K Planning, and then under the new block grant, we're using that to relieve the general fund. I'll talk about the ending fund balance on our multi-year projection slide, but this really helped us stay solvent in the out years to receive that additional funding. We also have just kind of notes on what we're doing with the CCSPP grant. That's resource 6332. We have a dean with student support. There's added student support staff, and the EL family liaison are being paid from that program. Then the kitchen infrastructure grant, there were some ovens and kitchen equipment that are being purchased with that, so that was an additional expenditure. And the learning recovery emergency resource grant, LREBG, are using that for additional student supports as well, staffing there. So our non-recurring expenditures increased by $1.7 million. If you look at our ending fund balance, so our beginning fund balance did change. This was due to an adjustment that was made after the budget was adopted when we worked on our unaudited actuals closing out the 24-25 year. There were some revenues that were budgeted in error essentially for the CCSPP program. This was only relating to our restricted ending fund balance. This was the full program, it spans 5 years, and the revenues were budgeted as if we were going to receive them all last year, so we had to correct that. So this doesn't impact the unrestricted or the unassigned portion of our ending fund balance, but the restricted portion only. So our beginning fund balance is now the $9.3 million that you see here, and the ending fund balance, including the restricted portions, is $7.8 million, and we'll look at that on the next slide in detail as well.
It's up for 2026, so that's the new projections, right?
Yes, for current year. Okay, and these are the components of that ending fund balance. So we have our 4% reserve for economic uncertainties. Revolving cash and stores are always the same. And then we have the restricted portions of our ending fund balance, which I'll just kind of go over some of the larger pieces. The Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, or ELOP, is $2.3 million of our ending fund balance. We have $500,000 for the CCSPP grant, the Special Education Early Intervention Preschool grant, the Arts and Music in Schools of Prop 28, those are all around $500,000. Then $480,000 for the LREBG, $347,000 for LEA BOP. So all of these pieces combined, the restricted portion of our ending fund balance is $5.1 million, and the unassigned unappropriated is just over $1 million. These are some of our multi-year assumptions. So we'll get into the ending fund balances in the multi-year on the next slide. But we are anticipating steady enrollment. It's been staying right around 2160, so we expect it to continue. ADA is, like I said, at CBEDS we're at 91.5. It seems reasonable to expect we'll be at least at 92 in the coming years because of all the changes that we're seeing when it comes to CT and our overall ADA as a result of that. And it's also added, just efforts at all of our school sites to improve ADA. We're really seeing the results of that. Not that it's reflected at CBEDS yet, but we are seeing that. We have our same assumptions as we have in past years for the technology refresh program and the deferred maintenance, $300,000 per year going to that. curriculum adoption. We have some adoptions slated for this year and next, and then dropping off a bit for the 27-28 year as of right now.
Let me stop you for just a quick second.
Sure.
The technology refresh program is something that I think we're committed to, okay,
Yes.
for the long term. And the deferred maintenance, we said, okay, this is the level that we think we need to take out of the general fund and put into deferred maintenance. I'm not sure those really count as expenditure increases. I mean, this is to show things that are changing. I mean, the curriculum adoption is the classic example of, yes, you're gonna do it these 2 years and it's gonna drop off.
Right.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I don't view that as an expenditure increase. It's a commitment that we've made long-term.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think what it was is whenever those were increased last, they were added to that slide and we just carried it forward, so.
Exactly, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yes.
And I don't think it needs to be there.
I agree with you.
new category.
Okay, thank you for that. And expenditure decreases, so we have kind of the same assumptions that we've been carrying forward. This is in part planning a couple of reductions through attrition. We're not looking at any layoffs or anything like that, but this would be reducing staff or programs where we can, but also some of this is just moving, better utilizing some of those restricted programs and seeing what more that they can take on and continue to relieve our general fund. So that's part of this. Things that we can change next year to make some staff eligible to be paid under those programs. So that's part of our assumptions, and it overall is a reduction to the general fund of 4 FTE in the 26-27 year, 2 FTE in the 27-28 year, and then instructional aids kind of to match those reductions. So this is our multi-year overview that shows a little more about the fund balances. So like I talked about, we've got our enrollment and ADA assumptions at the top of the screen. And if we look at the surplus deficit line, so this should be our final year of our planned deficit spending. As you can see, we have a little modest, surplus in the 26-27 year projected, and a much better surplus of the following year. So we do also plan out an additional year just in the background as we do this planning, and we're seeing it increase even more in the year after that. So we're looking at, as far as the unassigned unappropriated balance of our, of the portion of our ending fund balance, we're showing, like I mentioned earlier, just over $1 million in that balance for the current year, but we see that significantly, reduced in the 26-27 year, having to do with the deficit spending that we're still currently in this year. And we see much the same number the following year, but in that third year out, that third subsequent year that we do plan on, it's just not represented here because so much can change between now and then. We're seeing that number increase significantly. So my hope, and what seems to be the case based on everything that we know right now, our 2 subsequent years are going to be those lean times, that funding cliff, and after that, it looks like things will be improving.
Your multi-year projections assume no changes in salaries.
They do, they assume step and column increases. They
Okay,
don't,
so
they don't
besides
assume.
But nothing in negotiations. No?
Right.
Nothing in negotiations.
Yes, we don't have anything built in for that. And this is a detail of our Fund 25, the RDA portion of our Fund 25 redevelopment agency funds. So we had some expenditures so far related to the stadium restroom project as far as architect fees and inspection fees. And so we're moving along with that. We're going to be submitting our plans to DSA this week, actually, so that's moving along. We had some cameras purchased at some of the elementary schools just to, in the hallways and things where they were lacking, to help with behaviors and injuries and those kinds of things. We have our annual debt service for the leaseback purchase, the $646,000 thing. We have,
That's got how many years left?
that has, I wanna say
It's 2029.
2 more, okay, 3 more,
For the solar panels, it will be
Yeah.
the end of 20.
perfect, thank you, Michelle, that sounds right.
Oh, I thought that was the stadium.
That's a portion of it, because we refinanced the solar as
Solar
part of that, yeah. So they're all kind of connected.
Hey, Jess, can you, it didn't come through clearly, what year is the solar debt paid off?
We believe it's 2029, but I can send a confirmation to the board once we make sure of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we've got, another bigger chunk of this, $132,000 for architect and inspection fees related to the new building going in, the new modular building going in at North Shore as part of the ELOP program. Some more consulting fees based on the stadium restroom project and the Baldwin Lane fire alarm system as we try and get that A number cleared out. One day, we're gonna get there. And then our 2 utility workers that are paid out of Fund 25. So as a total right now, we're projecting 1.4 million in expenditures for RDA for this year. And these are all of our other funds. So ASB reporting is that Fund 08 on the top left. We are projecting a rough number of revenues and expenditures based on what they've been trending. We will update that at the end of the year with actuals. Fund 13 is our cafeteria fund. They're looking at, they're working on spending down that fund balance, so they'll project it to end at $949,000 in the current year. Deferred maintenance, we have our transfer in of $300,000 plus some interest revenues. We just have expenditures slated at $300,000, and so that would end at a $314,000 ending balance. Fund 17 is our special reserve for health and welfare. This is what offsets out-of-pocket costs for our bargaining unit members. And this is what we're projecting here. This is another one that we will be truing up probably after second interim when we have more information, but this is where we're showing between both bargaining units that there's an ending fund balance of $524,000. And the bargaining units are able to meet and decide on how they want to split that up between their members once we have that updated information. And this is
It's going up, it has been going down.
yeah, it's and even our bargaining units were able to increase pretty significantly the offset to their members, and it's still it's projected to go up a little bit into this year, so that's good news. RDA, this is what we just talked about in the last slide, the expenditures there that I detailed. So we're projecting right now to end the year with 4.2 million left as far as RDA revenue fund balance. Developer fees, we're projecting to receive $160,000 in developer fees, and we have nothing as of right now budgeted for expenditures. Fund 40 is our special reserve for capital outlay. This is where we would purchase capital expenditures from vehicles, things like that. As of right now, we have no plans for expenditures there. We're looking at $466,000 as an ending fund balance for that portion of Fund 40. For the tech refresh, tech sustainability portion of Fund 40, we have our transfer in of $300,000. We are roughly planning to spend the whole $300,000, and so leave the ending fund balance the same as it started at around $89,000. That's subject to change as Jake comes up with his, specific plans for that. And Fund 51 is our bond interest redemption. This has to do with our Measure Q GO bonds, and this is maintained by the Treasury. We report that out. We're showing an ending balance for this year of $161,000. And that is the presentation. Do we have any further questions?
So Jess, what was the expenditure for on the bond interest redemption, the $696,050, what was that for?
So this is us basically paying on that debt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how to report that out.
That's still Measure Q, right?
Yes.
Yes. That should be paying off fairly soon as well.
Yeah, that will be, I think next year it will be paid off, based on the rate we're going. So.
I have one request.
Okay.
Okay, going back to the RDA fund, you don't need to go back to the slide.
Okay.
That money is for improving our schools.
Right.
And it's gonna go away. We don't know exactly when, but we think it's around 2030.
2030 is our projected.
And we're paying 2 utility workers, and I thought about that a bit. And that's fine, because it's deferred maintenance and improving our schools. I would like to see, in the past, we've had a project list. All the deferred maintenance and all the little improvements, not big improvements, but little improvements that we need. It would be nice to have that again, so that we know that I don't want that money just dribbling away into O&M, right? I really want it to be for improving our schools or doing for increased different maintenance, so
Okay,
I would like to see what Craig's list is.
Craigslist.
Craig's list,
Yeah.
that's an odd coincidence.
Yes, we can definitely put that together, and would you prefer to see that on like a multi-year basis or the year at hand?
Yes, no, multi-year.
Okay.
Well,
Great, we can do that.
yeah, I don't know, that's, I'm only one board member.
Yeah, let's get some.
Is that the redevelopment agency?
Yes,
And
Okay.
just a correction for that, it does end in 2027, the remaining portion for Fund 01 is in 20.
The debt service portion of Fund 25? Okay. Thanks, Mark.
couldn't quite hear you.
For the debt portion for Fund 25, it ends in 2027, and then
Okay,
the
so
remaining
the-
portion that comes out of Fund 01 ends in 2029.
Thank you for that. And a huge shout out and thank you to Michelle for being by my side as we worked on this. We worked many extra hours and I appreciate Michelle's hard work on this.
Okay.
Hey, Justin Manning,
Yes,
so how many employees do we have currently, both certificated and classified, that are, their salaries are being paid by grants or programs and not out of general fund?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, Mr. Zamoyna, but I will absolutely get that to you.
that we have I will tell you, Mr. Zamoyna, we have recently increased that as we've been trying to get more creative with funding and to ensure that we never have to lay anybody off or anyone or anything like that. We have been, that has recently increased, so we will get that number back to you, to the board.
So, yeah, and so we're watching when those programs, the funding for those programs likely goes away and when they would either be reabsorbed or I don't know what happens at that point, if we hope that we keep up with it with attrition. Is that kind of the plan?
Yes, that's what we're looking at, is mainly attrition. I guess the main concern ones right now is what we're looking at would be the CCSBP grant in the next 3.5 years to see how we sustain that funding, because those would be the largest bulk of some that might lose funding. A lot of the other ones would be coming out of like Title I, things like that, where that's gonna be ongoing. We will get ongoing funding for that, hopefully, as long as the federal government maintains the Title I funding. But that's always been ongoing. The 3.5 years for the CCSPP grant, that's the one we really need to create a sustainability plan. That's what we're going and looking at for grants now.
And also.
And if, oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. I'm just going to add, we've also had quite a few conversations with the Mom and Dad Project.
Yes.
As they also received the CYVHI grant, which is for, similar purposes, and trying to partner with them to see how we maintain these programs after the CCSBP funding goes away.
So there's a couple conversations that are already happening to ensure that funding long term.
In worst case scenario, if those programs can't be funded, then those certificated and classified people will go back into the regular school site based on seniority if there have to be
Yes.
reductions in force?
Yes, they would have to be placed back in the classroom if for some reason we could not sustain the funding for any reason. Our goal is to sustain the funding, but yes, we would have to, so that means we have to have a pretty good, within the next probably 1.5 to 2 years, we should have a good, I would say 2 years, be able to have a good idea of where we're at with it, to look if it can sustain, so that we can plan ahead and not hire if through attrition, we know if these people have to go back into the classroom or not. But we have some good ideas on how to maintain it though.
Okay. And I know the puzzle, it's difficult to predict what the puzzle's gonna be, but the way it looks right now, if you're looking at the 2 out years, you're looking at a reduction of 6 certificated positions and 5 classified positions, but the enrollment stays the same. So we'd probably be looking at an increase in class size?
Could be looking at an increase in class sizes. Some of our class sizes are low in certain areas. Like right now, we know that there's in different areas where we know could lose somebody currently and still maintain. Really, secondary is always a place we have to really look at master schedules, take a close look at master schedules to ensure that those are being utilized appropriately. We look at elementary right now, like we're projecting right now that it's possibly we may be able to lose one through attrition in elementary next year. But all those things we wait to happen. We see when retirements come in, all those just waiting for that process right now. We did cut one out of independent study. We did not have to lose anybody. That position just went somewhere else under the CSI funding, but that's one position there that we were able to decrease. So we're trying to always look at how to do it without actually losing anybody, just moving people and then through attrition, moving people around a little bit.
Right. One last question. You had mentioned that a decrease in federal funds is starting to be seen by the district. Does the district have obligations to continue to fund those programs in light of the funding being cut?
So we do have staff that are paid from restricted programs, especially when it comes to federal programs. They are tied to that funding. If that funding was to go away, essentially the position could then go away. But as Mr. Marquez kind of mentioned already, we're really trying to avoid that happening, seeing where else we can absorb those costs if it does come to that. But if we had to, the positions that are reliant on a specific funding source could be dissolved if we had to do that.
Right. Okay.
Can I
Thank
make
you.
a comment about CCSPP?
Yes.
I was just gonna mention that, CTA is very proactive about trying to promote the CCSPP program, community schools program. And so I've been working with Mammy, we're hoping to send a team down to Anaheim, to the Anaheim Learning Lab, because NEA is, which is our national union, they are promoting, and CTA is also promoting community schools. And one of the things that Anaheim Secondary Teachers Association has done in conjunction with the Anaheim Union School District is they have actually pulled in more money from grants than they're receiving from the state of California for their CCSPP program. So by participating in the Anaheim Learning Lab, we're able to go down and see a model in which other school districts are successfully pulling in a lot of other resources from the community, which is, the whole point of community schools grant, and just bringing in resources and funding and trying to help, again, find ways to creatively fund these positions that are so valuable, like the student support specialists and the deans and such. And so we're looking at going in February. I'm really looking forward to seeing these types of things in action and seeing what types of positions and programs and things that they have in place to help make the community schools model more sustainable. So
A lot of things that comes with the CCSPP is based around, a lot of it is student wellness and mental health, and there tends to be a lot of funding for that right now, as that is a hot topic and tends to be a large issue, as we've discussed here in the board as well. This board has discussed that's where the funding tends to come from. So that's why we feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to, like Jess mentioned, through CYBHI, through Mom and Dad Project, partner, that we've already seen the partnerships with them do very well, as long as we continue those types of partnerships, but looking beyond that as well, even outside our own community.
We also just created in Flu a new position that's under the management confidential salary schedule that is funded through the CCSPP grant, and will be coordinating further grant revenues and looking for those pockets of money that we can apply for and hopefully continue to keep our programs alive with.
Sounds good. Okay, we have to take action on this, so I need a motion to approve the first interim financial report.
So moved.
Second. Any further comments, Paul?
No, I'm all good.
I'm
Okay,
just gonna take a roll call.
yes, please.
Board Member Foltz.
Aye.
Herrick.
Aye.
Smart.
Aye.
Zamoyna.
It's unanimous of members present. Okay, there being no further business, we'll be